pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Corman?
Here.
Mr. Prince?
Here.
Mr. Person?
Here.
Ms. Switchy?
Here.
Mr. McIrvin?
Here.
Ms. Perez?
Here.
Mr. Pavoni?
Here.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, all present.
Thanks, Jason. First item on the agenda is administrative report. Mr.
Yes.
Covington.
Mr. Mayor, just a couple of items. Want to just remind folks, Clam Lights are continuing to be open to the public from 5 to 9 p.m. Every night through January 1st. Also, reminder again, as we are potentially looking at colder weather this week, we'll watch the forecast to determine whether or not we're going to reopen our cold weather shelter. In the meantime, if folks are reminded in inclement weather, particularly if it snows, to get your vehicles out of the traffic lanes, as our snowplows need to go through there, and be very, very careful as you drive. We have a number of construction projects that we're still out there. We encourage people to get on our website to see what those, if any of those impact you. And I believe that's all, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Mr. Covington. Next item is audience comments. I have several people signed up to address the council. When I call your name, please come to the podium, give your name and city of residence for the record. You have 5 minutes. There's a light and timer next to the city clerk. First is Michael Transu.
They're on. It's on. Both of them are on.
This one doesn't have a light on it, so I can't tell. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council President, my name is Michael Transu, and I'm from the lovely town of Ruston, which is down by Point Defiance Park in Tacoma. And I'm here today representing First Cash, or Cash America, which you may all know, who owns pawn shops here in the city of Renton. First Cash recently merged with Cash America, and as I mentioned, we have 3 shops here in Renton. We have about 23 employees in this city. We offer 401k and health care to all of them. Nationally, First Cash operates about 1,200 pawn shops nationwide with its acquisition of Cash America in 25 states. Here today also to speak, who will follow me, is Mr. Dale Ellison, and he's a district manager for 2 of our Renton shops. And he'll talk about the reasons as to operationally why Ordinance 5830 is something that we would ask you not to adopt and to please reconsider. I'm going to focus a little bit more on the legal and statutory aspects of our reasons why we think the ordinance is not necessary. But the first thing I'd like to ask you to do is in the staff report to the ordinance, it says in there that a lot of property is ending up in local pawn shops. And I would challenge you to make certain that that data that is the basis for that statement exists, because it's something that we just don't necessarily agree with, that stolen property is ending up in pawn shops based upon our training and the way we go about doing business. First, I'd like to say that state law, or RCW 1960, as you may know, currently imposes several reporting requirements on pawnbrokers, requires us to maintain records of every transaction. Moreover, it already prohibits us from selling to persons whom the pawnbroker knows to be convicted of certain crimes, robbery, burglary, etc., from making false statements on any document, and from altering anything on a piece of personal property. Like the issue of serial numbers or model numbers. And I understand that has come up as an issue for your police department. And is what I would ask you to do in those situations where there is things like that that can be dealt with administratively or discussed with administratively with small businesses and businesses in your community, that you should start by doing that first. So if serial numbers and model numbers is an issue that needs to be corrected, please come to us. We'd love to sit down with your staff and your police department and figure out how we can solve that problem without the need or the necessity for an additional ordinance that duplicates in a lot of ways state law. Finally, we are currently required to place items on police hold, which you may or may not be aware of that the statute requires. And whenever that happens, that piece of property gets placed in a special area in our storage area. All in all, Washington state law really does require most of the things that your ordinance provides, and we'd really just at some level believe the ordinance is not necessary at all. and also don't believe that in adopting it, that you will necessarily address the property crime issues that you're having in Renton. I'd also like to dispel the myth that, again, pawnbrokers take in a lot of stolen property. The data that we use and that we have for our Renton shops is 6 out of every 10,000 transactions comes up with stolen property. We train our employees. We do everything we can not to take in stolen property. It's not in our business model. We're a loser if we take in stolen property, so it's not what we want to do. So with 6 out of every 10,000 transactions coming up as stolen property, we really think that the ordinance and its policy is a little misplaced. Third, we believe that the ordinance unnecessarily violates our customers' consumer and constitutional rights. As you note, we sent a letter in outlining those legal issues that we have with the proposal in that letter. In sum, we would ask you that the ordinance not go forward for the reasons I have already stated, and because we believe even if the property was one of those 6 in 10,000 times that happens in our shops, if we send the person away, that property goes right out the door. If we take the property in and it does happen to be one of those 6 out of 10,000 times, we have the property in our store and we have the ability to work with your police department and get it back to the rightful owner rather than watching it just walk out the door, and it could be on Craigslist, a swap meet, on the corner, or anywhere else after it leaves the shop. We also believe that the requirement in your ordinance for identifying witnesses to a transaction is something that just isn't doable for us, and we think has its own legal issues as it relates to having witnesses to a transaction. Several of the provisions in the ordinance are vague and subjective, subject to varying interpretations, like the new in the box section. We'd ask you to reconsider that. So all said, we would very, very, very much appreciate the opportunity to sit down with your staff to see if we can address the city's concerns without the need for an ordinance and with the spirit of working with your local businesses and trying to find a solution to the problem. If the major issues are
I'm sorry, your 5 minutes are up.
If the major issues are data entry, we'd love to sit down and talk with your staff about it. So thank you very much for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Next is Nancy Sejudo. I probably ruined your last name, and I apologize. And you can sit either down here or at the podium, whichever is more comfortable for you.
My name is Nancy Cejudo. I have a pawn business older than most of you guys are here. So I've been here since 1978. I bought it in 1980. So it's been here for many years. You all know it's just down the street. I think it's a reputable business. There's a lot of people. There's probably 20 to 25% of the people do not have a debit card or a credit card. So we are helpful to lots of families and individuals on this ordinance that we're talking about. I would like to know, because it hasn't passed to my knowledge, that's what's the criteria for a person to be on the list? I want to know how does a person get on the list? How do they get removed? Who updates that? How do we know it's something that was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, or 10? Who's responsible for putting these names on them and putting them on the list? What we did here in a previous meeting, that there were 650 names, and who puts them on that list? And when are they purged? And when their sentence is done, does someone look this over quarterly, yearly, or we want to know some of those things? We would like to meet with the city council. I've emailed and asked for meetings, and with the police department to come and visit us and to see how we really do run the business. It's not quite as we understand some of the people think they are. And we'd like to have you consider to table this, or think about it, or to come and talk with us at least before this is passed. I think that's all I have to say today. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
thank you very much. Next is Dale Ellison.
like to thank the council for having this opportunity. I work for and represent First Cash. Within that, I'm a district manager for Cash America, and I oversee 13 shops in the state of Washington, 2 of them here in Renton. First and foremost, I'd like to just express our opposition to Order 5830 and AB 1798, and also go on to say that we do employ 20 employees in this market. We service within 3 to 5 miles of our stores thousands of people who we look at as the ordinary folks in our communities who are underbanked. We become their bank, and we appreciate their business, want to continue to service them in a way that we think is responsible. Our stores are known for outstanding customer service, and we enjoy the relationship with our customers. We like to be able to transact quickly and with discretion and confidentiality, and we think there are many parts of this ordinance and this proposal that would conflict with that. Our stores are well lit, clean, and welcoming places to do business. And if you've not been in our shops, we would invite all of you to come out. We do tours with legislators, with reporters. Would like to be able to teach you and tell you more about our business. So you have that invitation. You may not know this, but our industry is heavily regulated, and we must comply with federal, state, and local regulations, including the ATF and the Federal Reserve Board. In the state of Washington, pawnbrokers are licensed and regulated by state agencies, and we are meticulous in our compliance in accordance with regulations. No one wants to do that loan transaction more correctly than we do because we have the risk in that loan transaction. Our employees also collect the description and serial numbers of the items that are purchased and pawned, and every day we report those transactions to law enforcement via leads online. But this law would also require us to report that person's race, complexion, and eye color. We would also have to list every witness to a transaction, so that means we would have to list every person in the store, which is not a realistic expectation, again, to transact quickly. I think as you go to your bank, you don't want to see longer lines, neither do our customers. They want to be able to get out and be able to go do their family obligations, get back to work, get to school to pick up the kids, and just enjoy their lives here in the Renton community, and we want to be part of that. We have a very low rate of the items in our shops that are found to be stolen. We're very proud of that. We are very diligent in the way we train our pawnbrokers. We do put the onus on the customer to prove that that item is there. For example, we have to know how to operate an item. We'll ask questions, and if we believe that item is not theirs, we will not do that loan. And every day we have loans that we turn away and turn down in our shops. Many of our customers are already in the daily reporting system, and they tend to pawn the same item over and over again. We would be subjecting those customers to basically a criminal type background check every time. So the 99% of our customers that are never going to be on that list, that no-buy list, would be subject to that on every transaction. And we have customers who've been coming into our shop for 10 years. So it's just, again, going to add to their transaction time. It's going to be harder to get in and out of our shops, and in many ways, an invasion of their personal privacy. Also, within the ordinance, there's a recommendation for photocopying the driver's license. And again, we look at that ID, we record it, but do not believe that it should be kept or retained at store level. We have it recorded in our computer system. We have very strong relationships with the detectives and voluntarily reach out when something's not right. We recently had a situation that was highlighted on Como News when one of our pawn shops notified police that we had an item that we knew was worth way more than it was brought in. You might have seen that in the news. And we've tried to reunite the owner of that item. So again, looking out for the best interests of our customers in the community. As you can see, we care about our customers. We're about the community. We're proud of our partnership with law enforcement. There is no bigger, better supporter of law enforcement, and we are willing to address any and all concerns that they have. I would invite the opportunity and encourage them to reach out and spend time with us as we work together to make doing business in Renton good for us and good for our customers. And I thank the council for their time. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. Next is Kevin Opdahl.
Hello, my name is Kevin Updahl. I'm the president of the Washington State Pawnbrokers Association, and I have a shop in Auburn. As you might know, this is passed in Auburn. And I've got some tales to tell you of things that have been going on there. There are real people that are affected by this. And by no means do we ever want to do business with criminals. But there are other people that are affected. Here's a copy of one of a customer that was pulled up on the no-buy list. This particular customer, for quite a while, had been a very good customer of ours, bringing items in, picking them up, rewriting them, bringing them back in, picking them up, same items over and over and over again. And the last time he came in, he was on the no-buy list. And we informed him that we can no longer do business with him. Let's just say he was a little shook up over an incident that happened several years ago. He did his time, community service, and paid all his restitutions. Everything was fine in his life, and yet he is still being punished. Now he has no access to any financial services. I have several customers several customers in that same boat. Don't have the one here, but I actually had a young lady break into tears because she needed to pay her power bill. Same thing, always bringing in the same set of tools, got $60 every month. She came in, she was on the list for something she did a long time ago. She couldn't get her power bill paid. A story out of Seattle. There was a shop up there, Palace Loan. Seattle used to enforce a no-buy list. And Perry up there, they sold a DVD player. This is back when DVD players were worth something. Sold this gentleman a DVD player. Took it home. He was happy with it. Everything was great. The next month, he brings it into the same shop he bought it from with the receipt, wanting to get a loan on it, not wanting to sell it or get his money back. He just wanted a loan. They wrote him a loan. He was on the no-buy list. Perry was charged with the gross misdemeanor, and so was his employee, charged with the gross misdemeanor. This spent a lot of time in court. They finally got out from under it, but they spent a lot of time and money fighting this in court. And the other issue we're having in Auburn is equal enforcement of this law. Is this going to cover, because RCW states pawn shops and secondhand dealers. And this means anybody who takes in anything secondhand, jewelry store, record store, computer store, cell phone place, anything, GameStop, anyone that takes anything, are these also being enforced here? Do they have to check the no-buy list? Are they reporting? Are they holding everything for 30 days? I don't know about Auburn. I know I've been renting. Auburn, they weren't, and I've been pushing and pushing to get that out to the rest of them. And there's this nice big full-page ad in the Sunday paper for Priscilla's Jewelry, and they're having a big 5-day event from all these hotels from all over Western Washington here, and we pay cash for all these things of value. They're not checking the no-buy list. They're not even reporting, nor are they holding the items for 30 days in the jurisdiction in which they're buying them. So my question is, if this passes, are all these other issues going to be addressed in this city? With all the other secondhand dealers, is it going to be evenly enforced? And with the pawnbrokers, like this situation in Seattle, I was talking to the fellows I know in Auburn, and they kept saying, oh, no, we would never do that. Well, what kind of assurances do we have on those kind of situations? So that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is Diane Dobson.
Good evening, Council, Mr. Mayor, and members of the Council. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Diane Dobson, live in Renton. Here on behalf of the North Renton Neighborhood Association, we've somewhat adopted the downtown core as an area that we oversee with different items too, just because it kind of falls into the no man's land of no neighborhood association for the second set of eyes. We're running into a little bit of a challenge on one of the properties in downtown Renton, and that's a particular counseling agency that has a lot of homeless that are sleeping and making this regular quarters. I don't want to say their name, I'm sorry, I don't want to throw anyone out. They've indicated that they too are having challenges with these people that are sleeping on their property, but they can't sign a no trespass or a trespass authorization form. And so they reached out to a contractor to install gates at their property, and they've hit a roadblock with the fire department here that they can't put the gates on their property. So I'm really hopeful that someone with the city can reach out to this particular counseling agency and maybe work with them to come up with a solution that will benefit the entire neighborhood, so we don't have these challenges. I had two clients come into our law firm today that were harassed by the people that were at that location, and when it starts to impact our business, that's when we really start to pay attention. Second, here to convey our support for the various ordinances that are in place or are being reviewed by the council. One is that alcohol impact area, very supportive of that. The other is the pawn ordinance. And hearing testimony tonight, I really wish I would have been able to reach out to these individuals, because of the 6 out of 10,000 cases of stolen property, we've had not one, not two, but 3 within our family, one of which we received a phone call from a pawn shop, and they indicated that the item that they came to the conclusion that it was stolen, and they came to that conclusion after they looked at the property and found my dad's driver's license number engraved on the piece of property. So they did indeed accept the property, even though it was clearly identifiable as not the individual who was selling it. When my dad went down to retrieve the property, the pawn shop charged him for the item, and he said, "This is stolen property, you can't charge me for the item." And they said, "Well, either you pay it or you never get a call again on stolen property." So as much as I respect the testimony here, and I'm sure there are people that are trying to impose the rules and regulations as they should be followed, there are some employees maybe that are under the skirting under the auspice of the law, and there are some challenges. As a neighborhood, we do support that ordinance.
Okay, thank you. And Diane, if you could please give Commander Wilkinson the name of the counseling firm, and then we can check into that.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for seeing that out loud.
Okay, moving on to consent agenda, we have 6 items for council consideration. Are there any items a council member would like pulled for discussion? Mr. Corman.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda as published.
Second?
Moved by Mr. Corman, second by Mr. Pavoni, that council concur with the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Moving on to unfinished business, Mr. Corman.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and Mr. Prince?
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Person?
Oh, yes, Mr. Mayor, one Finance Committee report.
Okay, Finance Committee report, compensate a surface water civil engineer at step E of grade A25. The Finance Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to authorize the compensation for Sithu Babu as a surface water utility civil engineer 2 at step E of grade A25 effective January 3rd, 2017. This is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Person.
I move the council concur in the recommendation of the Finance Committee.
Second?
It's been moved by Mr. Person, seconded by Mr. Pavoni, that council concur with the Finance Committee report. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Ms. Witchy?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Community Services Committee has 1 committee report.
Okay, Community Services Committee report, revised City of Renton housing repair program policies. The Community Services Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to approve the revised City of Renton housing repair assistance program policies. The revised policies take effect January 1st, 2017. This is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Ms. Witchy?
I move that council concur with the recommendation of the Community Services Committee.
Second?
It's been moved by Ms. Witchy, seconded by Mr. Prince, that council concur with the Committee Services Committee report. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, Mr. McGurven.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Ms. Perez.
No unfinished business, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Pavoni.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Public Safety Committee has 3 committee reports.
Okay, the first is regarding pawnbrokers and a no-buy from list. The Public Safety Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to approve amending Renton Municipal Code 6-17 to include a no-buy from list, which would require the pawn shop owners not conduct business with a seller who is active on the list, and addresses judicial ramifications if the pawn shop owner violates this provision. The committee further recommends the ordinance regarding this matter be presented for first reading and advanced to second and final reading and adoption. This is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Pavoni.
I move that the council concur with the recommendations of the Public Safety Committee.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Pavoni, seconded by Mr. Person, that council concur with the Public Safety Committee report. Any questions or discussion by council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. McGurven.
So the question that was raised, I heard, was how long someone is on the list. I was just curious to the answer to that.
10 years.
10 years?
10
Okay.
years.
Any other?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Clement.
I had a clarifying question also, and I'm looking for the words again. It was about the witness, writing down the names and addresses of witnesses to a transaction. I presume that's not intended to be everybody in the store that's standing some distance away watching a transaction. I presume it must be the people at the counter that are participating in the transaction.
I could ask our city attorney if he wants to weigh in on that.
Well, I don't presume to know the exact details of how it's defined in the ordinance itself, but I mean, the term witness, I think, could be applied different ways. And, you know, one of them being eyewitnesses, not just people present. And so if I was looking as an attorney to prosecute a case, I would be looking for people who could actually speak cogently about what transpired and took place, rather than somebody who just happened to be present.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Any
have a
other
question
questions?
as well.
Yeah, Ms. Witchy?
One of the points that was brought up was that if they don't sell to a pawnbroker, they can take jewelry, for example, to a jeweler or a We Buy Gold situation or other places. Does this apply to those businesses as well? Is it just a matter of enforcement that they're having issues in Auburn, or are they included?
The city attorney can answer that.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question?
Well, one of the points that was brought up was that the ordinance should technically apply to any business that gives cash in exchange for items like jewelry. Although they may not be issuing a loan, it's simply a sale. In most cases, if it's gold or silver, they're just going to weigh it. Do they have the same requirement or obligation to, research the source of that material and, have the same list, or is it just the pawnbrokers?
Well, I know, and I was just taking a look at the RCW, does define pawnbroker, secondhand dealer, and secondhand precious metal dealer in different ways. So they're treated differently under the law, if that's what you're...
Okay, so they're under the same ordinance, but they're treated differently.
Well, under the RCW, they're treated differently. And in looking in our ordinance, I don't think we have as specific definitions delineating all three. So I would have to take a closer look.
Would that be something that could be amended at another date?
If the ordinance is enacted tonight, well, if the ordinance is enacted, yes, it's something we can take a look at, but it would take a future
Right,
legislation.
okay. Any other,
Well, Mr. Mayor, I think the ordinance should be passed tonight, but I think it's an issue that we should refer back to administration, because I really believe that the gold dealers and all these other people that are taking it in should be covered underneath the same ordinance.
okay. Any other comments? Okay, we got a first motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, the next Public Safety Committee report is regarding the alcohol impact area. The Public Safety Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to approve the proposed alcohol impact area ordinance, which would help mitigate the negative impacts on the downtown area of the city of Renton that result from the presence of chronic public inebriation and the antisocial behaviors that are associated. The committee further recommends that the ordinance regarding this matter be presented for first reading and advanced to second and final reading and adoption. This is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Pavoni.
so in this report, this is a very well-defined outline in the downtown core. This is a process that is actually took Commander Schultz about 18 months to go through. There was specific steps that he had to take to make sure that there was actual need for this. And I believe it's a 6-month trial period to make sure that there's actually results from this ordinance. So with that, I move that the council concur with the findings of the Public Safety Committee.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Pavoni, second by Mr. Prince, that council concur with the Public Safety Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, the final Public Safety Committee report is regarding a interlocal agreement for the Valley Special Narcotics Team. The Public Safety Committee recommends concurrence in the staff recommendation to approve the proposed interlocal cooperative agreement between the cities of Auburn, Federal Way, Kent, Renton, Seattle, Tukwila, and the Port of Seattle for the Valley Narcotics Enforcement Team, VNET, in order to establish and maintain a multi-jurisdictional team to effectively investigate and enforce the criminal laws relating to controlled substances. The committee further recommends the resolution regarding this matter be presented for adoption. This is signed by the committee chair and members.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Pavoni.
I move that the council concur with the findings of the Public Safety Committee.
Second?
It's been moved by Mr. Pavoni, second by Mr. Corman, that council concur with the Public Safety Committee report. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, thank you. Moving on to legislation, we have one resolution and 4 ordinances.
Okay, the resolution is regarding the VNET. A resolution of the City of Renton, Washington, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into an interlocal cooperative agreement with the cities of Auburn, Federal Way, Kent, Seattle, and Tukwila, and the Port of Seattle for the Valley Narcotics Enforcement Team.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Corman.
I move adoption of the resolution.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Corman, second by Mr. Pavoni, that this resolution be adopted as read. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, the first ordinance is for first and second reading. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, creating an alcohol impact area within the downtown area of the City of Renton.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Corman.
I move the ordinance be placed on second and final reading at tonight's council meeting.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Corman, seconded by Mr. Pavoni, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading tonight. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, second and final reading. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, creating an alcohol impact area within the downtown area of the City of Renton.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Pavoni.
I move that the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Pavoni, seconded by Mr. Person, that this ordinance be adopted as read. This requires a roll call.
Mr. Corman?
Aye.
Mr. Prince?
Aye.
Mr. Person?
Aye.
Ms. Switchy?
Aye.
Mr. McIrvin?
Aye.
Ms. Perez?
Aye.
Mr. Pavoni?
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, all ayes.
The ayes have it.
Okay, the next ordinance is also for first reading and advancement to second and final reading. It's regarding the pawnbrokers. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending Section 617.1, 617.2, 617.5, 617.6, and 617.7 of Chapter 17 Pawnbrokers of Title VI, Police Regulations of the City Municipal Code, adding a definition of transaction and adding amending regulations relating to pawnbroker records, prohibited transactions, and penalties.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Pavoni.
I move the ordinance be placed on second and final reading tonight.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Pavoni, seconded by Mr. Person, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay, second reading. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending Section 617.1, 617.2, 617.5, 617.6, and 617.7 of Chapter 17 Pawnbrokers of Title VI Police Regulations of Municipal Code, adding a definition of transaction and adding and amending regulations relating to pawnbroker records, prohibited transactions, and penalties.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Mr. Pavoni.
I move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Pavoni, seconded by Mr. Person, that this ordinance be adopted as read and requires a roll call.
Mr. Corman.
Aye.
Mr. Prince.
Aye.
Mr. Person.
Aye.
Ms. Switchy.
Aye.
Mr. McIrvin.
Aye.
Ms. Perez.
Aye.
Mr. Pavoni.
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, all ayes.
The ayes have it.
Okay, the next ordinance is for second and final reading, is regarding a water leak adjustment policy. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending Section 8446 of Chapter 4 Water of Title 8, Health and Sanitation of the Renton Municipal Code, clarifying the city's water leak adjustment policy.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. McIrvin.
I move that the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. McIrvin, seconded by Ms. Perez, that this ordinance be adopted as read and requires a roll call.
Okay. Mr. Corman.
Aye.
Mr. Prince.
Aye.
Mr. Person.
Aye.
Ms. Switchy.
Aye.
Mr. McIrvin.
Aye.
Ms. Perez.
Aye.
Mr. Pavoni.
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, all ayes.
The ayes have it.
Okay, the final ordinance is regarding low-impact development and adopting the surface water manual. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, amending sections 42110, 42115, 4340, 43100, 43110, 4430, 4440, 4460, 4470, 4480, 4490, 44110, 4630, 4660, 47150, 47200, 47220, 49150, 49200, 41160, 41190, 411 411 411 910-2, 910-11, 915-1 of City Code, adopting low-impact development principles and practices in compliance with the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Phase 2 Municipal Stormwater Permit, including adding and amending regulations and the definitions of impervious surface feasible with regard to application of the Surface Water Design Manual and RMC 4630, infiltration facility, LID best management practices, low-impact development, LID, pervious surface, stormwater facility, and surface water design manual, and adopting the 2016 King County Surface Water Manual with the City of Renton's amendments thereto, and the April 2016 King County Stormwater Pollution Prevention Manual. Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. McIrvin.
move that the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
Been moved by Mr. McIrvin, seconded by Ms. Perez, that this ordinance be adopted as read. I understand it's about 900 pages, is that right?
That's correct, yes.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Excuse me.
Or roll.
I'm sorry.
Roll call.
This has been adopted, yeah, so it requires a roll call, sorry.
Mr. Corman.
Aye.
Mr. Prince.
Aye.
Mr. Person.
Aye.
Ms. Switchy.
Aye.
Mr. McIrvin.
Aye.
Ms. Perez.
Aye.
Mr. Pavoni.
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, all ayes.
The ayes have it. Thanks a lot, Jason. Moving on to new business, Mr. Corman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm just going to announce, actually, some cancellations of some meetings. So, as I'd mentioned during Committee of the Whole, this is our last city council meeting of the year. I want to thank the council and the mayor for making it as productive of a year as we have. So with that, there's no meeting on December 26th, the holiday. There's no meeting on January 2nd, 2017, as that's a holiday. No meeting on December 19th, thank you, as that's also a council holiday. And then actually, in keeping with the spirit of that, January 9, which is not, the meeting is not canceled that night. We will have a council meeting, but there will be no committee of the whole that evening. And I think that is all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Corman. Mr. Prince.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I don't have any new business, but I do want to thank Council President Corman for his service as our president this year. Thank you,
very much.
Randy. And
Good
that's all,
job,
Mr.
Randy. Okay, Mr. Person, did you want to make a motion to refer to the administration to research the gold and silver and other dealers?
Yes. But Mr. Mayor, I make a motion referred to the city administration, the ordinance, the pawn ordinance being ineffective by, how am I gonna, also covers gold dealers, pawn, and secondhand dealers.
Second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Person, second by Mr. Prince, that the administration research the new pawn ordinance as that it'll affect gold dealers and other secondhand sales.
Yes. And I think that's really important, that we go after, have restrictions on those people too, because you see these flyers coming up all over the place.
All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Right?
Opposed? The ayes have it.
And Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Mr. Corman.
Just so there's not confusion from the public on that, so what effect, the administration will look into whether this would impact other dealers who are offering people cash for used items.
Right.
So obviously, it wouldn't have any impact on those charitable organizations which are receiving donations, as nobody's walking away with cash, so there's very little incentive for that to be stolen.
Right.
Yes. Okay.
The intent is that people that are actually making a business
Right.
out of it, not if you want to buy something from your neighbor.
Right. Good.
Okay, Mr. Person, new business?
Yes, on January 9th, that's, gosh, almost like having a birthday. Finance Committee meeting will meet at 4:30 PM in the council conference room. 3 topics: Main Avenue South, project bid award, vouchers, and emerging issues and revenue streams, and I bet you we have 200 pages of vouchers.
You will.
That'll be my first week on the finance committee, too.
We're going to train you.
Welcome aboard.
Yeah, whole month worth.
Ms. Witchy, you have any new business?
No new business, but I too would like to thank Randy Corman for his service this year. It was a great first year to be on council, and under your leadership, I learned quite a bit.
Thank you very much.
Mr. McIrvin?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I have no meetings to announce, but I want to echo the sentiments expressed by my colleagues for my thanks for our president, and my thanks to everyone for helping me out in my first year on council. It's been a great first year. It flew by. I can't wait for 2017. Speaking of 2017, don't forget Polar Bear Plunge, January 1st, 11 a.m., Coolon Beach Park. I'll see you all there.
Yeah, I believe we have some staff members participating in
will.
that as well.
I'll have binoculars.
I'll do it if Ruth does.
You can watch it from your house.
Ms. Perez?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Monday, January 9, 2017, at 5:30 p.m., the Transportation Committee will meet at the Council Conference Room. We have 2 items on the agenda. One is extension of Boeing lease for parcels 760 and 770 at the Renton Airport. And the second issue is emerging issues in transportation. And I echo my council member fellows, thanking President Randy Corman. Thank you very much for your leadership, especially for me, my first 2 years in council. And I wish the new president all the luck,
Yes.
as I know he will do a great job.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. President.
And Mr. Pavoni?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, January 9th, at 6:30, geez Louise, they moved it. Okay, January 9th at 6:30, the Public Safety Committee meeting will meet in the council conference room. There'll be 2 issues, code enforcement regulations and penalty ordinance briefing, and second, emerging issues in public safety. And I would also like to echo thanks to Mr. Corman for his service, and my first 3 years, I got to go through Mr. Person, Mr. Prince, and then Mr. Corman as leadership, so they showed me the way.
Well, Mr.
So
Mayor,
that-
we're very much looking forward to Mr. Pavoni's leadership next year, and we'll do a
Thank
great
you.
job.
Thank you.
Okay.
Will we adjourn?
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Person, second by Mr. Prince, so we adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Happy holidays, everybody.
Thanks.